Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this inaugural Welcome Table Talk, proudly hosted by Wintergreen Women Writers Collective in partnership with Torch Literary Arts. We are so excited to have you here tonight. My name is Mayron Price, and I have the honor of serving as the project coordinator for the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. Wintergreen is a nonprofit that gathers Black women in literary community that seeks to publish, document, preserve, and celebrate their creative work. Over 70 women from across the country have taken part in one or more Wintergreen retreats over the last 38 years, coming to a place where they can do the sacred work of literary and cultural production. Wintergreen is prefiguring a world where the history and legacy of Black women writers have access to intergenerational spaces where in community and mutuality they can nurture one another and locate resources to support their creative practice. Before I introduce tonight's speakers, who need no introduction, I wanted to share a brief poem from Lucille Clifton to ground us for this conversation. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with it. It's called Won't You Celebrate With Me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up, here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Tonight, we have the privilege of hearing two incredible women in Black literature speak about how they built Black feminist institutions in uncertain times, how they made it up on this bridge between starshine and clay. They are the respective founders and executive directors of two organizations that really embody what it looks like to celebrate that every day something has tried to kill the Black literary imagination in this country and has failed. Founded in 2006, Torch Literary Arts is a 501c3 nonprofit that was established with love and intention to publish and promote creative writing by Black women. Torch publishes contemporary writing by experienced and emerging writers alike. Torch Magazine has featured work by Toy Darracott, Tayari Jones, Sharon Bridgeforth, Crystal Wilkinson, Patricia Smith, Natasha Trethewey, and many, many others. We are so pleased that tonight's conversation will be the first of a series of Welcome Table Talks held over the next 3 years. We at Wintergreen are so grateful to get to partner with Torch Literary Arts, and without further ado, I will introduce tonight's speakers. First, we have Amanda Johnston. Amanda Johnston is a writer, visual artist, and the 2024 Texas Poet Laureate. She has over 20 years of experience in nonprofit management and earned her MFA in creative writing from the University of Southern Maine. She is the author of 2 chapbooks and the full-length collection, Another Way to Say Enter. Her work has appeared in numerous online and print publications, among them Callaloo, Poetry Magazine, The Rumpus, and several anthologies, including Furious Flower, Seeding the Future of African American Poetry. She has received fellowships, grants, and awards from Cave Canem, Hedgebrook, Tassajio, the Kentucky Foundation for Women, the Watermill Center, and the Austin International Poetry Festival. She is a former board president of the Cave Canem Foundation, a member of the Appalachian Poets, co-founder of Black Poets Speak Out, and of course, the founder of Torch Literary Arts. Dr. Joanne Gabbin is Professor Emerita of English at James Madison University and founder of the Furious Flower Poetry Center, the first academic center devoted to Black poetry. She is the author of Sterling A. Brown, Building the Black Aesthetic Tradition, the editor of several volumes, and executive producer of the Furious Flower video and DVD series. She is the founder and organizer of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective and author of the children's book, I Bet She Called Me Sugar Plum. As a dedicated teacher and scholar, Dr. Gabbin has received numerous awards for excellence in teaching and in scholarship. Among them are the College Language Association Creative Scholarship Award for her book Sterling A. Brown, and the Outstanding Faculty Award, Virginia State Council of Higher Education. In 2021, James Madison University honored her and her husband with the naming of a campus building, the Joanne V. and Alexander Gabbin Hall. So without further ado, please welcome Amanda Johnston and Dr. Joanne Gabbin.
Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Gabbin. Oh my gosh, Mayron, thank you so much for that warm introduction.
Yes, indeed. We're so happy to have her as a part of Wintergreen.
And thank you.
Amanda,
Hey, we're here. We're here. I got to do my gratitude first before I get into this love fest on you, Dr. Gavin. Because I have so many conversations for so many questions for our conversation. But I also want to thank, the team, Elisa, Elena, and Brittany, who are behind the scenes, making sure that everything is running for us. And thank you to Pro Bono ASL for allowing this to be more accessible through ASL interpretation.
fantastic. And I want to say this, I'm so excited to be here. This has been a very, very difficult week for me, but I come here today with a praise song because my sister for the last 7 days has been in the hospital, and she was hospitalized because of a heart disease. And she had the surgery this morning, and she prevailed. She came out of it
Yeah.
safely. She will go home tomorrow. I just could not start this conversation without talking about the important sister in my life who has been in my life for 71 years. So I
Oh,
just want to say, Doris, I'm so glad that you are safe. And I'm so
yeah.
glad that I can bring all of my joy and all of my gratitude to this conversation because it would have been hard otherwise.
Well,
So,
praise and blessings. I'm so glad that she is out and on the road to recovery. Praise
yes,
that for sure. And praise us just being here. Again, that's a testament to the many things. I mean, Mayron, you opened with Lucille Clifton's poem is so meaningful as always, but especially in these moments, we remember all those things that have tried to kill us and what have failed, have
that's
failed.
right. That's
So
right.
here we are. And in the work that we do, right, for ourselves and then for the organizations, institutions that we build. So I'm so excited. I'm gonna go ahead and jump in because I have a lot of questions, and I know once me and you get to chatting, we we can go on and on. But another thing from that incredible poem, Won't You Celebrate With Me, is that line always strikes me that says, I had no model. And because of women like you and the work you've done, Dr. Gabbin, I actually do have a model. And I've been following you and your work through Furious Flower. And of course, when I learned about Wintergreen, following the incredible sisterhood and collective of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. So that's very much been a model for me and for Torch in its development. But could you share a little bit for those who might be learning about Wintergreen, for the first time, um, how you came about to start Wintergreen and a little bit of the history?
Oh, I'd love to do that. In fact, I love telling the origin story of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. Back in 1987, Nikki Giovanni came to James Madison University to do a reading. And I invited my students to have dinner with her. And after the dinner, she was going to her car and she said, Well, Joanne, I'll be coming to Virginia in September. And I said, What? And she said she was coming as a Commonwealth visiting professor. Well, my husband and I came to JMU as Commonwealth visiting professors. Rita Dove went to the University of Virginia as a Commonwealth visiting professor. So I said, Wonderful. But then I started thinking, I need to do something to welcome her to Virginia. to give her the kind of hospitality she deserves, because I'm thinking once she gets here and she has a year, she's going back to Cincinnati. But I wanted her to feel welcomed that particular year. So I said, well, look, I want to bring a group of women together to meet you so that you'll have a circle that you can call upon when you need them. And she said, that sounds lovely. And, I was thinking about having it at my house. And my husband said, oh, no, if you have it at your house, you won't have a good time. Everybody else will. And so we took it to Wintergreen. And I arranged for a house in Wintergreen. But there is a subtext to all of this. Amanda, I remembered as my first year at JMU was very, very unwelcoming. In fact, the English department really probably harassed me, as you would say, because when I went to the first faculty meeting, I had a so-called colleague go to the last row of the classroom and say to his colleagues coming in, come on back here to the Jim Crow section. And I am the only Black person in the department.
Oh, wow.
And he says, as the meeting gets started, to the others filing in, and he's smelling of bourbon and tobacco smoke. Come on back here with us niggas. So that was my introduction to James Madison University and the English department. I thought, Nikki Giovanni is not going to have that kind of welcome. But just in case it is not the welcome that she wants, I want her to be able to have someone there that she can call upon besides me. And so that was the subtext for my trying to plan this retreat. I don't mince words when it comes to telling the truth. Everybody should know that there was hostility in 1985 when I came to James Madison University. And Amanda, I stayed long enough to change the culture. I think I changed the culture because of Furious Flower. But so we had that first meeting. There were 11 of us, including Daryl Dance, Trudia Harris, Sandy Govan, Opal Moore, Paul Marshall. It was a wonderful, wonderful gathering. And of course, everyone said, we have to do this next year. And so I arranged for the house for the next year. And we have been meeting ever since 1987 without interruption for 38 years. That's how it happened. That's the origin story.
Beautiful.
And it's all about hospitality and how do you create a sacred space for women who have to come from these academic institutions, from pink slips and corporations, from publishing no thanks notes. How do you bring them to a safe space where they can do their thing and feel that they have support and have understanding and encouragement? So that's what Wintergreen has been for me and for these women all these years.
I love that. It started from a place of love and care. From sister to sister, how are you gonna welcome this other sister into this space that was cruel to you, right? And I think that's a great comparison. I mean, to the title of our conversation in these uncertain times, right? How
and
we're
they
doing
continue to be uncertain, don't they?
Right. They were uncertain then, they uncertain now. But that love is consistent and has always been there. And that's similarly what it was for me. Now, again, I had the model of seeing Furious Flower and seeing you doing your work, I founded Torch in 2006. So Wintergreen had been established, Fresh Flower had been established. And I had the great privilege of being a Cave Canem Fellow and being a part of that incredible institution, and then staying and working and being on the board. So I knew I received the benefit of all of my foremothers and forefathers' work to know that we could have these institutions, right? But even in my experience of being at many different institutions for fellowships, for residencies, visiting, etc., I too did not always feel welcome, or even in BIPOC spaces, seeing specifically Black women doing a lot of labor. So even if we were in the space, and it wasn't our job, but because of the care and love that was there, folks who were supposed to be writing and making art were also tending and checking on each other, or saying, oh, nobody's doing this, so let me pick it up and let me take care of something that is taking them away from their work. And so in 2006, I had the thought, well, what if we got to sit down, and what if we made a space that was intentionally feeding into us? We say for us, by us, but like, really, what does that mean, and how does that look when you do it again with love and unapologetically, with intention that that's what this space is going to be? And so I'll say, I had the idea. So what if I start Torch? And first as a magazine, as the online digital magazine, which we still have, but it was the magazine. And I had reached out to a few other friends who were also writers and asked if they wanted to do it with me. And they both said no. they they both said no. And there was something in me, though, I mean, no pun intended, but there was a fire, and I was like, no, we get this, we're
Yeah.
gonna have this. And I did freelance web design at the time, so I said, if you build it, they will come. And so, with no money and no partners, I made a website. And I said, we're going to hold this space for Black women writers. And I got it up, and we put out the call. Again, I was already writing, so I had an incredible network and community of writers who wanted to participate. But I can remember two distinct moments with the launch of the magazine in 2006. We put up the call saying we were opening, I think it was in the spring of 2006. And I received first an email with work attached from Linnell Moyes, incredible Haitian poet, this brilliant poet. And it was before it actually opened, but in the body of her email, it said, I couldn't wait. And they were some of the best poems I had ever read. And I was like, wow, if this is what's coming even before the doors open, I can't wait to see what we're able to hold in this space. And then the second submission I received was from a grandmother. And I just remember in the body of the email saying, her writing that her granddaughters had encouraged her to submit, and that Torch was the first place she had ever sent her creative writing. And so
That's incredible.
From 2006, I said, Torch will exist, and we will exist in that span from when we say emerging at any age, at any time. It's never too late to be emerging and start sharing your work, to experienced writers, talented writers, and everyone in between finding their way on the page. That's what Torch will be here to hold for Black women.
That's incredible. And your approach was so different from ours, because we were a retreat space that was very private and very self-facing, if you will, not outward facing. So we came together as writers who had many of us had a following, like Nikki Giovanni and Sonia Sanchez and Toy Derricott. These are women who could go out and command the stage, but they also needed a space where they could just kick off their shoes, put on their pajamas, and share their work in a situation where they knew they would be encouraged, and it wouldn't just be fangirling it. It would be, please just let me know what you think about this poem or this short story or this essay. So it was that kind of supportive space. And it was for us an opportunity to just strengthen ourselves, to refresh ourselves, renew ourselves so that we could go out and face that world that wasn't
Mhm.
always pretty. In fact, was ugly many times, you know. So but I love this because I love the fact that with your particular approach, which is different from ours, and our turning just 2 years ago to this really situation where we're now wanting to be more out-facing so that we can indeed be more effective models for uh, Black women writers out there who may not know about Wintergreen, but who will want to do what we have done. We don't say that everyone has to join Wintergreen. We say that you can take this model of hospitality, of kindness, of embracing what brilliance and intellect, and do it yourself in your own community. So that's what we're all about. And but this partnership with Torch is going to really give us an opportunity to expand our reach, you know, and it's also intergenerational. Look at your black hair, look at my gray hair here.
Oh, I got some gray hair in there. Don't let the camera magic fool you. It's in there. But yes, in it being intergenerational is so important and integral to the work, right? You know, again, no pun intended. I keep saying that. Maybe the pun is intended. But carrying
That's
the
right.
torch, right? And how we pass it along. That's always been a part of the work at Torch. And you know, when we say supporting emerging and established writers, there in the digital magazine, we were able to do that through a special section that we called the flame and the spark at the time. And so we had a more experienced writer. You know, usually folks are talking about their, you know, who inspires them, and it's the other way around. It's a more experienced writer. But we would have our flames be the more experienced writer and name their spark as who they see igniting for the next generation to come. And our first in 2006 was Sharon Bridgeforth, and she named Shia Shabazz as her spark. And they're both very much still a part of Torch and the work that we do, but to look at the trajectory of their careers. I mean, Sharon was already doing incredible work at the time, but where she is now, it's, I mean, she received the Yale Wyndham Award, and she is a filmmaker, a screenwriter, you know, as well as a published poet. So to see the arc of their careers since 2006, and then we did that for several years. The second, I believe, was Patricia Smith was the flame, and her spark was Ramika Bingham Risher.
Wow, my
Yes.
goodness.
So all of that is documented to and archived through the magazine so that we can show those relationships, right? To be able to show our sisterly family tree, right? And how
I
we're,
love
what
it.
our lineage is and who is saying whose name and who's supporting each other, right? Because we know we might write alone, but we don't do the work alone. This community uplifts all of us. But with that, I want to go to another question that I had, because as folks are here watching,
Okay.
you know, we've got folks who are writers, creatives, and also looking to start organizations or might currently be a leading organization. So I want to talk about that community partnership part and how we gather the resources, right? So like this collaboration with Wintergreen is definitely love work, but it is an important resource, right? Where we
Yeah,
get to learn and receive support from Wintergreen, including financial support, right? That's a generous inclusion to name Torch and have us receive some financial support from your granting partner. But then we get to share our experience and knowledge in hosting webinars or how we've been building our audience and growing our community. So can you talk a little bit about the resources you had then versus the resources you need in this phase of Wintergreen?
all right. Yeah, in fact, when we started the retreat, we had just contributions by women who were coming to the retreat. We covered our accommodations, we covered our own travel, we covered our own food. So it was all based on contributions and donations from the women. And we did that, as I said, for 37 years. But then in 2023, I had the good fortune of getting the ear of a person from the Mellon Foundation, and I told him about Wintergreen. In fact, I think I shared this story with you, Amanda. When he talked to me, he called me to ask me, are there any worthy organizations out there that deal with writing that you would recommend? Because Furious Flower had already gotten a Mellon Foundation grant to develop its archive. And so I had established a relationship with the Mellon Foundation. And I am talking, and I said, Cave Canem would be a wonderful recipient. Also, Torch Literary Arts. And I'm naming all of these, places, all of these organizations. And then I said to myself, I haven't mentioned Wintergreen. I said, well, maybe you'd like to hear about the organization that I've been a part of all of these years. He said, tell me more. And I told him about our retreat group. He got very excited and he said, why don't you write a proposal for a planning grant for this Wintergreen to collect the archives, to document the writers, and to make sure that this organization is sustainable. Because right now, there is nothing in the bank, I had to tell him that. But so when I got off the phone, Amanda, I went to my lawyer and I said, look, how can we make, Wintergreen a 501c3 quickly so that we can be eligible for foundation funds? And sure enough, it got turned around so quickly, I was really surprised. And so by the time I talked to this person again, we had a 501c3 organization paperwork. We had it through, and we were now eligible to not only get grants, but also receive donations. And so, but to answer the question, it's only been 2 years that we've had money. I thought the best way to use that money is not only to help us develop an archive, document the women writers who needed to be documented outside of the very, very famous ones, and then also come into partnership with other organizations that share similar goals and values. And I immediately thought about Torch Literary Arts. And therefore, I hope that part of my stewardship would be to make sure that the foundation knows about Torch Literary Arts so that you can go to the Mellon Foundation, Ford Foundation, other foundations, and talk about why you should be supported in a very generous way for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Gabbin. That is so generous. I mean, again, that's one of the things that happens, I feel actually more often than not, but us getting the chance to talk about it here, just me saying other people's names is what I mean, happens often, sharing resources, like we just do that. But to have it documented in this conversation is important for people to see. That's something that Black women do all the time. And it's how we don't just get by, but how we come up. Similarly, Torch didn't have nothing. We had no money. I told you, I asked for, 2 friends if they wanted to do it with me. They said no. I made the website and it was just out of pocket,
Yeah.
out of pocket. And then we did incorporate as a franchise in Texas so we could open a bank account, but we're still very much operating as a nonprofit. We weren't selling anything. We weren't doing fundraisers, we weren't collecting money, but a few, contributions, again, namely out of my pocket to make sure the website was on and the hosting was paid for, that type of thing. That was the majority of our first 15 years. We did, after the launch in 2006, add the reading series, the Wildfire reading series in 2009, but it was sporadic, you know, a reading here, a reading there. The first reading was a partnership with Cave Canem in Brooklyn, just down the street from the Dumbo office when they were still there. And it was beautiful, but I wasn't hosting readings necessarily even in Austin. It was where the other opportunities were. So like we had a torch reading during AWP in DC, right? And they were just happening sporadically. But during the pandemic lockdown, after 15 years, I looked and I was like, maybe we had a good run. We featured 150 writers, you know, that's already documented and historic, but I'm watching major for-profit and nonprofits folding and struggling, right, during the lockdown. And
Right.
I thought about closing Torch. I did. I was like,
Yeah, that's, yeah, I know. That's one thing I wanted to ask you, this whole idea, the challenges that you face and how you have to consider sunsetting,
yeah.
an organization. I dread that, and
Mhm.
fortunately, we now have an implementation grant from Mellon to talk
Mhm.
about sustainability, to talk about
Yes.
how we don't have to depend on one person to
Right.
carry the load. And I was concerned about that because, I'm not getting any younger. And the point is,
Mhm.
who's going to want to do all those things that I did,
Right.
all those things that you did to keep this organization going? If we want it to last, another 25, 50 years, because these organizations should last. We have
Yes.
to make them so that they have the organizational structure to continue. We have to give them the resources that will allow them to sustain themselves as
Mhm.
we go forward. So it's really irresponsible to do otherwise. And
Exactly.
I must say, in terms of Furious Flower, I was so excited that I was able to pass on Furious Flower to someone who believes in its mission as much as
Mhm.
I do, in the person of
Mhm.
Lorna Lane. But Furious Flower, in a real sense, exists and exists so strongly because of the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective. Now,
Mhm.
remember, it was 1987 that was formed, not until 1994 when Furious Flower happened. And why did I have the courage to do Furious Flower at a PWI like James Madison University, a PWI whose faculty were still not very supportive? Now, my students were supportive, but my faculty were not. And how did I have that courage? Because I knew waiting in the wings were people like Deborah McDowell and people like Daryl Dance and Trudia Harris
Mhm.
and, all of those people, Val Gray Ward, Opal Moore, who would have
Mhm.
my back and take part in panels and do those things that would support the conference. And that's how, many of the great things that we did as a part of Furious Flower happened because I had a
Mhm.
sisterhood.
That's right. That's right. The same with Torch. I did have an amazing 3-member board at the time when I was considering closing, and we talked about it and agreed no, that during the time when we were losing so much, to not take another thing away from us. Right. But then we said if we're going to keep Torch going, then we have to build it out as the institution that it should be, because that's what our community deserves to have. Right. And so we said, we'll get the 501c3 nonprofit status. We'll do major fundraising. We'll change our, publishing model and enhance our programs so that we can do more. And paying Black women was a grounding principle. That if we're going to do that, we're going to make sure that folks get paid for their time and talent, right?
Exactly.
So I'm so glad that we didn't let it go, and
Oh,
that
yes.
we're here and building stronger than ever, right? And
Yeah.
every day there's more momentum, more visibility, more folks coming into the light, right, and coming into the work of Wintergreen and Torch.
Yeah. Well,
But
Amanda, I have to say about you, you know, you are amazing with all of the roles you carry so beautifully. You are also what Lisa Willis, the wonderful, brilliant executive director of Cave Canem, calls a two-sided leader. And when she says that, she says the two-sided leader is the artist and the administrator, the creative and the person who manages well, develops well. How did you develop those skills?
I learned it by watching you. Learned it by watching you. I mean, truly, like I said, I did have models, so I got the benefit of seeing and working beside like Toy Derricotte, co-founder of Cave Canem, and
Absolutely.
being there to see this incredible institution blossoming and growing in front of my eyes, that started from that dream that she and Cornelius had, but then also to then grow and be able to work next to her on the board, and no, she's writing, she's still writing, she and continue to write, but she also was part of Wintergreen, right?
Yes,
So
she is a part of Wintergreen.
exactly, she's a part of
Yes,
Wintergreen.
yes.
So it's being, I have learned by watching the incredible women around me show me the way. um Thank you for being amazing, and for all that you've done that has fed into me before you even knew who I was.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
well, with that, I do want to have, the conversation that I wish we didn't have to have. But we talk about the uncertain times. They weren't
Yes.
certain then, they're not certain now, but in a different way this moment, this time. And it's real. And I know folks are worrying, and folks are looking for guidance. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but what I can say for Porch in this moment, when there's so many challenges and so many threats, um, we are certain that we're not going anywhere, and we are clear and resolved in our mission and our work for Black women. That will not change.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. People ask, what's going to happen when they challenge, you know, um, these granting agencies who support organizations like us? Well, we're going to be there to say, we're going to continue doing this work in the bad words, DEI, will continue. Diversity is not a bad word. Inclusion is not a bad word. Equity, that's what we're fighting for.
Right.
We are against this anti-intellectualism that is rampant. We are not going to burn books. We're going to write books. We're not
Right.
going to talk about not saying that our children should be taken away from the discomfort of talking about slavery and our combined history of trauma. We've had trauma in this American life, but we will be better off if we know what the trauma is and how to live with it. I don't agree that we have to prevent children, white children, Black children, all children, from knowing this history. So we are in it to stay in it. We're in it, as the teams will say, we're in it to win it. And there's no
Yep.
one who's going to cower me into stopping the work that we're doing with the Wintergreen Women Writers Collective, with Furious Flower, or any of the other organizations that we support. The values are still our values. And no, we have people who are trying to tell us that we don't have a history. We're trying. There's a little poem that I want to share, and I didn't know it was going to come up like this, but I said, okay, I'll have it ready. But we're talking about building. You and I, Amanda, are builders, and there's a poem that Fred Joyner, bring a man in here.
Love, Love Fred.
Yeah, Fred. I love Fred. To the builders, our hands speak the language of artifacts. Under a Saturday sun, we obey the call of our hands, the burn of builders aching in your palms, the breath of storytellers stirring in mine. We build to leave the world different than we enter. Leave evidence. A syllable is a brick. A single inked word on a page is a monument in the face of a white horizon meant to erase us.
Mm.
He nailed it.
Fred
We,
Joyner.
Fred Joyner,
Mm-hmm.
we have to understand that we're in a situation here where people are trying to erase us, and we have to resist. I think about my Wintergreen sister, Sonia Sanchez. At the end of every reading, she gets into a chant and she says, resist, resist,
Yes.
resist. And we're going to have to resist, and we're going to have the mental, literary, spiritual strength to do it. And we can. And we can because we come together.
Yes.
We come together as collaborators, as uh, a sistership, knowing that we love and want the same things. I think about Courtney Thornton when she talks about the sisterhood that existed for just 2 years, from 1977 to 1979. But these women, these giants, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, June Jordan, Ntozake Shange, and many others came together. And for those 2 years, they supported one another. And when they got strong, they went out and they did these amazing things. Well, they had their moment. We had ours. I told you about my origin moment. My daughter said that, Mom, you take moments and turn them into movements. And I said, you give me too much credit, but I accept it. And
No, that's what they say, facts. That is all facts. But no, that's exactly right. We must resist, and resistance looks in many different ways, right? But the first thing to resist is yes, the erasure, but do not be a party to your erasure. And what I mean by that is it's the soft knife that comes first, right?
Yes.
They come with a dull knife first, and it's just, oh, just change this word in
Yes,
your mission statement.
exactly.
Just change this thing over here. And my existence and my work is not here to comfort those who would oppress me. My
Exactly.
existence and my work is here so that I can uplift and amplify my voice and those of my sisters. So you have to be clear about the work that you're doing, and you have to be loud about it. Don't be timid, don't shy away. Say loudly what your work is, what you're doing, and don't change it, because then those who need it and want to support it can find you.
Exactly. I call that preemptive obedience. Even before people tell you to obey this and to obey this executive order,
Right.
you are doing all those things to acquiesce. No,
No,
there's nothing wrong with what we've been doing.
no.
We have to continue to insist on diversity in the literary market. We have to insist on diversity among publishing agents and publishing personnel. We have to insist that our books are in libraries. We have to do that. We cannot say, okay, we're going to risk not having this funding because of these words or these concepts. No. If we do that, we're already dead. We've already
We're
capitulated.
already dead. And not in just, closing our doors, our services, our programs, but cutting off hope. And I will not be a part of that. The work, again, I had models, grateful, to be able to follow you and see your leadership and resolve then and now. But the work that we're doing, right, when people are submitting poems to Torch, when they're submitting their stories, their creative writing, they're submitting and saying, I see a place that I already know loves me. They already know they see me, and I know I belong there. Whether I am accepted or not, I know I belong there. Right. And then when folks come to our programs and are part of the community, that's what they're able to see in the middle of all of this hateful rhetoric, a place that says, I know I belong here. And I'm
That's
not
right.
going to turn the light off on that. Right. So it's even before we get to our books being published and being on the shelves, have we inspired and left the doors, the windows, take the roof off so that the next generation of writers, you know, and no matter what your age is, no matter where you are in your writing career, you know this is something you can and should and must pursue. That we have to have your stories. You have to share them. And there is a welcome space for here, right here. And these welcome table talks are going to
Welcome
welcome you
Table
on
Talks.
home.
Welcome Table Talks. And you know, that title came to me because I thought about Wintergreen and how we come together around that dining room table and we share our ideas. And it's a place of joy, a place of sacredness. And it's all, and also what comes out of there is so productive and so enriching. And we just want that for the next generation because we know we have to have it, we need it. And just I'll take you back to my origin story and bring it to a conclusion. That man, that bully, we know about that kind of bully today. We know he thought he was in a situation where his colleagues would support him, and they did. The most distressing thing about that experience that I had that day was that not one of my so-called colleagues said a word, not
That part.
one. And that silence will kill us. So we can't let these people shut us up. What happened with that situation led to my becoming director of the honors program at JMU. That led to my developing a cohort of students who loved poetry and who insisted that I invite people to JMU. That's how Gwendolyn Brooks came the first time, and the second time we built an entire conference around her. And unsure what I did with Furious Flower led to the naming of the building in my honor and my husband's honor. So what that man intended for evil, the universe made into good. And I will always shout it from the roofs because we can't let anybody stop us. If he had stopped me, if he had made me turn tail and run, there would be no Wintergreen Women Writers. There would be no Furious Flower and all the other organizations that I helped to build. So I just want to encourage the women out there who are thinking about starting an organization. Don't be discouraged by the naysayers and by those who say, oh, Black women can't work together.
A lie.
A
The
lie.
devil is a lie.
That's right.
Absolutely not. Reach out, right? Ask for help. Follow people who are doing similar work, you know, learn as you go. We all started where we started, but first we knew we had work to do. What did Toni Morrison say? I'm gonna end there, and then I think there's some questions in the Q&A. But
Okay.
what did Toni Morrison say about the true work of racism? Was to what? It to distract us from our work.
Of our work. That's right. That's exactly right. That's
So why should
exactly right.
we shall not be distracted?
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
we are laser sharp on our purpose. And you know what, Amanda, I'm just thrilled to be working with you.
Likewise, I love you. All right, I think there's a question in the Q&A. Let's see here. I'll read it out loud. As publishing becomes more inhospitable, um, to Black women writers and is likely to be even more so under the present federal administration, might you make some suggestions for spreading our work within publication circles and beyond?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it. We have several women, fortunately, who are in publishing, and they are the ones whom we should go to get the information. Um, if you are interested in knowing the names of some of those agents, those publishing agents, just email me and I will share them with you. They are just a couple that I would go to. You know, the amazing, and Amanda, I know you know Mary Brown. She is still kicking. She is
Mm-hmm.
still, they are helping people, especially Black writers, Black women writers. I can put you in touch with her, and she can put you in touch with others who are in the field. So we are out there. Fortunately, this period, I call it this Obama stage, helped us because we got a lot of people in place who are still there and will not be moved unless we don't support them. So I'm willing to share any information that I have with those about publishing. So it's not going to turn bad right away. It's only going to uh, be disappointing if we don't reach out and find mentors in the area of publishing to help us.
Absolutely. So generous of you to share those resources, Dr. Gabbin. I would only add to that too is to, remember how much power and control we have over our work. They can't publish a damn thing without us. And if Black women's voices aren't there, then you've already accepted an incomplete narrative. They have already accepted an incomplete narrative, right? So, number one, continue writing your work, right? And it will be housed where it has always been meant to be housed. I believe in things being divine and being on a path, right? But then also, like you said, turn to your sisters, turn to our community, right? So whatever, your community of people, of peers, of folks that you identify and have a kinship with, go to them first, right?
That's right.
Work, across, right? As opposed to looking up, and looking out into different places. Start with, you have so many resources and connections. If you sat there and started writing them down, you would see, oh, wait a minute, I do already know this, but I do. So ask them, and reach out to them.
Yeah, and also remember the open source opportunities. There are places that will receive your work. You might not get paid at first for what you publish, but you'll get your work out there. We have a relationship through this Mellon grant with CETA Press. And if you are interested in finding a way to publish your work, even work that will pay you, uh, they might be one small press that could be interested in what you're doing. So let me know if I can help you connect with some of the small presses. Because if we wait for a big contract with HarperCollins, we might be waiting for a while.
Mm.
And so, let's use these other resources. Let's get our writing out there in many different ways. And then you never know how these things are going to hit. We have a member of Wintergreen, Amber McBride. She got turned down over and over again. And then she wrote this poetry book for young adults called Me Moth. Got a good agent. They floated it. It became a finalist for the National Book Awards in
That's right.
2023, 2022 maybe. And so, and now she's on fire. This is her fifth book coming out. So it just takes some patience and finding that right person who's going to support you, and finding a group that will say, yes, you can do this. You can do this. Yeah. Mhm.
Awesome. We got another question in the Q&A. What were your major challenges with starting your 501c3 as women of color?
Well, it was for me, it miraculously, it was a very quick process. I had a good lawyer who, really supported what I was doing. She got right on it, went to the documents, the forms that I needed to fill out. And the fact that you need to have a board already lined up. You need to have at least maybe 9 or 10 people that you can depend upon to have the offices on the board. You need to show a good reason for the organization's existence. And then you have to have a fiscal agent, or at least fiscal knowledge, or else no one's going to give you that kind of opportunity to raise money. So we were able to not only get a 501c3, but we also connected with Educopia, and Educopia became our fiscal sponsor. So that is, you have to have your finances in place, and of course your vision has to be clear and sound.
Yes. No, I agreed. But for me, I have to say too, very personally, I was not believing that I could be the leader of my own organization. While I had been leading other organizations, while I had been, serving and supporting and amplifying and helping everyone else's vision and dream come to life, there was still a part of me that I had to trust that I could do it.
Yeah.
And then once I said, wait a minute, I hear James Baldwin, here's the evidence, but in a positive way, the evidence was all of the work I'd already done to support and sustain institutions that just were not my own. That once I accepted that I was already the leader, the executive director that I was trying to become and concerned I couldn't be, I was already doing it. And then once I did that, then I had the confidence to say, now let me go get the rest of the things I need. And so I reached out here in Texas, in Austin. There's a wonderful organization called the Nonprofit Austin. And I had just blindly emailed them asking for some guidance. And I got a response back from the director who took a 30-minute phone call with me. And at the end of that phone call, we had our EIN, we had our application for
Look
our
at that.
nonprofit status. Because I had already, remember, we were already existed in Texas as a franchise. So I had a board and we had a bank account, but that next step to becoming a nonprofit was incomplete. What I couldn't do for myself in 10 years until I found my own confidence, I did in 30 minutes on a blind
Isn't
email
that something?
when a kind stranger heard my call. And let me tell you, this white man don't look like me. He doesn't,
Yeah.
but saw what I was doing. He said, let me help this woman. And he did. And in 30 minutes, we had our nonprofit.
That is amazing.
That was
That's
it.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say, don't limit yourself with all of the uglies and all of the nastiness and happening. Again, the anti-Black rhetoric, the hateful, disparaging, oh, you can't do this, you can't say this. Yes, you can do it. And yes, you can say it. Say it louder and ask for help. And the people who want to help you and need that work you're doing to exist in the world will help you.
Yeah. But, Amanda, the fire is always there with you. I remember all of your work with Black Poets Speak Out. I mean, the fire is there. And you've taken that fire, listen to the metaphor, to torch. You've taken the fire to torch. And that's what we have to do. I've taken my love of poetry and made sure that I support people in Wintergreen. And it's really about seeing yourself not only as a creative, because I write some poetry, and I hope in these latter years, if I have a few left, I'm going to write some poetry, and I'm going to maybe get a little piece of a memoir out there. But it was always about having the understanding that my role as an administrator, as an executive director, was to support other writers. So because if you're only selfishly concerned about your career and how many books you write, you will never have the time to help anybody else. So, that whole thing about having a double aim, and sometimes a double aim can kill you. But I had the double aim, but my focus was always on the one that required me to be executive director of organizations that supported other writers. It was always clear to me that was where I was supposed to put most of my energy.
Thank you. I think we've got time for just one more question. A question of how did you find encouragement to keep going when the money wasn't there and the naysayers were?
I want you to answer that.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I'll tell you right now, there were definitely hard times, struggle. You're tired after working a full-time job. And at the time I still had two young kids. My daughters are grown now, but they were young and in school, and I got a whole husband and family I'm taking care of. And then I still got to read these submissions, and I still got to update this website. And I was still doing it by myself with no money. And I'll say the first naysayer that was again in my head. I had to take her out. She had to go. Right. But then I would cry, literally cry, reading those emails and those submissions when the talent, oh my God, the fierce talent of the writers coming to Torch would say, "This is my first publication. This is the first time I've ever been published." And I'm like, we get to do that for you. And you were able to find your way forward in your own writing, here to us. Like there's something that's really powerful about that. And just to get to be a part of it, I would be in awe, right? And you remember your first yeses when somebody or some
Oh,
place
yeah.
or something said yes to you. And you were like, really? Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
So that we get to be that yes to hundreds of women. We get to be that place, and growing into the thousands where people say, wait a minute, I can come here and do my work with Torch. I can share my work with Torch. And the answer is yes. That always, that pushes me still today. That is my why. Knowing
That's
that we
fantastic.
need it, knowing that we need it and we get to provide it. That's that's everything.
Yeah. And I think about Wintergreen and how we were able to encourage a writer like Carmen Gillespie, who was also a superb teacher. And she told us the story about how she was working at a Virginia university and had ordered books and found out 2 years later, when she didn't get the books and she had to reorder the books, that painters were trying to uh, paint her office, and went above her office and found that a whole box of books were in the overhead, in the ceiling space above her office. Her colleagues had decided to hide her books because they didn't want her to teach African American literature. And how she cried to understand that she was in such a malicious, toxic community. Uh, that's what we provide. We provide not only the way to write, but why and the how and the encouragement to make sure you keep writing. So we have our job out there for us. We have our individual jobs, and nobody's going to stop me. And
Me either.
I nobody's going to stop you, Amanda.
Mm-mm.
So these bullies out there, you just can forget it.
That's right. But that's the other thing too, us being here, right? It's like that in itself is enough. When you, sadly, those things still happen, right? We
Yeah.
and are being emboldened in this current time, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those things to happen. But when those things happen, just to know, you know what? I have this other place. I have this space that is just for me. And
Yeah.
while I'm in this space that is unwelcoming to me, that is bullying me, that is threatening me, that is challenging me, I know that I am supported with Wintergreen. I know that I'm supported with Torch. That is something we get to offer. And I'm so proud and grateful
That's
that
a
I get to do this with
truism.
you.
That's a truism. And we are so looking forward to this venue of having, at least three a year,
Yes.
welcome table talks where we come together and share important ideas with each other. And I'm now, I can't wait for the next one. I don't know about you all who are listening, and I thank you all for joining us, but I can't wait until the next one. I'm really so encouraged by this idea, but most of all, I'm encouraged by the relationship that we're forming with Torch Literary Arts. And I know that we share another thing. You are an artist. I am a
Mhm.
lover of art.
Mhm.
You are a poet. I am a poet. You're an administrative executive director. So am I. Uh,
Mhm.
and we may also share my other passion, uh, our husbands.
We both got wonderful husbands. Yes, we do.
We have wonderful husbands.
Yes, we do. Oh my gosh. No, this has been a joy. And yes, thank you to
Yes.
everyone who came and attended. Thank you again, Dr. Gabbin, for being conversation and welcoming Torch to the Welcome Table
Thank
Talks with
you.
Wintergreen. Thank you again to our incredible team and Pro Bono ASL for providing ASL interpretation. I know we have some announcements to share, but yes, follow this space, follow our online presence so that you don't miss these future Welcome Table Talks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I hope that you had an amazing time for our very first inaugural Welcome Table Talks. I am so happy. My name is Alicia, and for those of you, I hope you didn't have any trouble getting in to our session today. As Dr. Gabbin said, we're going to be having several more of these sessions. I just want to thank both Amanda and Dr. Gabbin for this amazing Welcome Table Talk. And as they stated, it's so important that we support each other wherever you are as a writer. If you are a new author like myself, or if you're a seasoned author, and so, or an artist, whatever that may be. And so, in this time, in these uncertain times, just remember that you have a welcoming space with Wintergreen, the new organization, and with Torch. And so, in the chat, you can be able to find both of these organizations if you are, haven't actually been at torchliteraryarts.org to be able to find out more in their activities. And as we're just getting started, you can be able to find out more, and we'll roll in more activities and events as well for Wintergreen, and that's at wintergreenwomenwriterscollective.com. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. Also, hoping that you will also sign up in the chat. There is a survey. So we would love for you to be able to sign up and then sort of help us as we're sort of getting started to welcome you to the welcome table to find out more as far as things that you would want to be able to see and the support that you would need. So until next time, please look out for the next event and please tell your friends. And just like I said, either new writers or artists or seasoned ones. So until next time, have a beautiful day.